If you're like me, you love tabletop role-playing games, and if you're a parent, you really want your kids to play those games with you so that you can enjoy doing something together that you both love. But it can be hard for kids to stay engaged with these type of games because they can be long and complex. I have 5 tips for you on how to help kids stay engaged with tabletop role-playing games this week on Short Rest Studios. Hey, I'm Judd, and this is Short Rest Studios, and I've got 5 tips for you on helping kids to stay engaged with tabletop role-playing games. And stick around after number 5 because I do have a bonus tip for you. So let's dive in. Tip number 1, boom, make room for them to talk. So I have a group of friends that I play tabletop role-playing games with, adult friends, and they're very gracious in allowing my daughter to come play with us, and they're really patient with her, and it's been a really great experience. But one of the things that happens sometimes is that, she can feel intimidated when the adults are really getting into it and, they're yelling out ideas and really getting into the action. She has a hard time speaking up. And in addition, I like to think that I've raised her right, and so she has enough respect to not interrupt adults when they're talking. So there's a little bit of both of those things at play, and she may not speak up when she should. So I have to, as the GM, make room for her to talk. I have to allow her, make a space for her to interject when the adults are really getting into it and trying to figure something out. And one of the ways that I do that is by specifically asking her. If the adults are really getting into it and discussing ideas, and I feel like she has something that she wants to say, or even if I don't necessarily feel like she has something, I may just still say, hey, do you have something you want to add to the conversation? Do you have an idea that you want to share? And that's a good way to make room for her to speak up. The other thing that I can do is before the game even starts, have a conversation with her and just say, look, you need to speak up. I want you to speak up. The other adults who are playing the game with us want you to speak up. So please tell us what's on your mind. Tell us your ideas because you're a part of this too. And that's the idea, is we're helping her to be part of the game. We want to help our kids to feel like they're part of the game, so we have to make room for them to talk. Tip number 2, keep things moving. We all have those rules lawyers who like to nitpick the minutia of the rules and bring the game to a complete standstill. And we also have sometimes those inexperienced players who don't really know the rules, because TTRPGs can be very complicated. And sometimes, new players have trouble keeping up with all those rules. And if I'm honest, sometimes the GM doesn't know the answer when that player asks a question. And that can bring things to a screeching halt while we all try to look up the rules. This gives kids the opportunity to get really stinking bored. They lose focus, they get tired, it's no good. So here are my suggestions on how you can kind of keep things moving. First off, take that rules lawyer aside before the game starts, before everybody's at your house. Maybe call them up on the phone. Don't do it in text, that's really bad. Talk to them before the game. And just say, hey, when you start nitpicking the minutia of the rules, that is not fun for the other players, especially the kids. And if they have a problem with that, then they may need to find another table to play at. And that's just me being real. And that can be a hard conversation to have, but I think it's worth having so that all of the players at your table can have fun, including the kids. Second, my second suggestion for keeping things moving is don't let combat get bogged down. Our party that we play with is pretty big, and we were playing a low-level adventure, and I had to up the number of enemies and encounters and things like that just so that it wouldn't be a walk in the park for them, so that it would be a little challenging and more fun. But what that led to was a whole lot of back and forth, a lot of combat turns, and it just went on and on. And that makes the game slow way down. So one of my suggestions is look for some alternate rules, like side initiative, where you roll initiative for one side and the other So you roll initiative twice instead of rolling initiative for every PC and every enemy. Or there's variations on that as well, but find something like that. I mean, there are plenty of alternate combat rules out there. Whatever game you're playing, I'm sure that there are some alternate rules, or you can homebrew some rules so that your combat can just move a little faster when things start to get bogged down. Tip number 3, focus less on roleplay and more on action. And I'm not saying to ditch roleplay altogether. I'm just saying to focus a little bit less on that than you do on the action. What I'm saying is that kids really do well when they have physical activity to keep their minds engaged. That really helps them. So the actual act of rolling the dice is something that can help them to stay engaged with the game. So bring in those ability checks, bring in some combat, find reasons for them to actually physically do something to help keep their minds engaged with the game. And when there are those opportunities to role play, as a DM, take the chance to help them be a better role player, to help them learn how it works, because role play can be intimidating for adults. Imagine a kid coming in and playing a game with a group of people she doesn't really know very well, and that she maybe is a little bit intimidated by, and she has to pretend to be somebody else, right? It can be hard. So give them the opportunity to learn a little bit. Throw them some prompts. Give them some instruction beforehand. Help them to learn how roleplay works. Tip number 4, keep your sessions shorter. And I know some of you aren't going to like this, but let me tell you what happens. Our group gets together around 6:30 on a Friday night. We have some food, we launch into the game about 7, and we're playing until midnight. And that is a nightmare for a kid. They get tired, they get frustrated, they get impatient, they just don't want to be there. And then the rest of us start to get impatient too. You know, we're like, you can't leave, you're our cleric, we're all gonna die. It's not a good thing. It's not fun for anybody at that point. Think about it this way. As an adult, you know, I am constantly, oh gosh, let's start there. Think about it this way. As an adult, I can't tell you how many times I'm saying, Think about it this way. As an adult, I can't tell you how many times I hear myself saying things like, I can't believe it's March already. Time goes by really fast for us. And you know, you remember this. As a kid, time went really slowly. Man, summer lasted forever. The school year was an eternity. That's how it is for kids when we play DnD or Pathfinder for 5 hours. It seems like an eternity to them. That 5 hours feels like 15. Imagine that. If I'm playing a game for 15 hours, I'm probably not going to be able to stay focused either without some help. Keep the sessions a little bit shorter, and that gives the kids more opportunity to stay engaged and not get frustrated and then not start to hate the game because every time they play it, it goes on so long. Keep them shorter. One of my suggestions is this. We always go into the game, well, I say I do, and I think you probably do too as a GM, with an end point in mind for the session. Knowing that our players can do whatever the heck they want to do, right? But we have an idea of where we think we'll get by the end of the session. My suggestion is pick an earlier stopping point. And you don't necessarily have to stop at that earlier stopping point. When you get there, take a look at the clock, see how long it's been, see how the kids are doing. If you feel like you can keep going, keep going. Just kind of play it by ear and look for other places that might be a natural point to stop. And that will help shorten the session, and it will help the kids stay more engaged. All right, here comes tip number 5. And remember, stick around after this one because I do have a bonus tip for you. Number 5 is make sure their character has an integral role to play in the story. And I know that you're thinking right now, Judd, that's what we're supposed to do anyway for every player. Yes, it is. But because kids maybe don't talk as much, because they're not as sure of themselves as adult players might be, sometimes we sideline them without even realizing it. So we have to think about that, and we have to make sure that, like every other character in the game, they have an integral role to play in the story, and they're not just there as cannon fodder or there to take part in combat or just hanging around as a sidekick, but that they are an integral part of the action, and that their character their backstory plays into the story of the game, and that their character has some impact on the final outcome. It's really important to give that to them so that they can stay engaged with the game. All right, and now for that bonus tip, number 6. As a DM, level up your roleplay. My daughter told me that one of her favorite things, one of the things that really helped her feel connected to the game, that she really enjoyed, was when I would make voices. You know, they're facing a monster and I give it some kind of silly voice, and that really stuck out to her. And it may be that she enjoyed it because she likes watching Dad embarrass himself, or it could be that she enjoyed it because she thought it was funny, or maybe it's because it helped her to feel more immersed in the world of the game. Whatever the reason, it doesn't matter. If your kid's gonna laugh at you and that helps them stay engaged in the game, then let them laugh at you. It's fine. Whatever we can do, level up that role play. Make it more interesting. Make it more fun. Make it a little goofy. That's fine. It's a game. It's supposed to be fun. So that's number 6. That's the bonus tip. Level up your role play. If you found something valuable in this, if you found a helpful tip, if you enjoyed this content, do me a favor. I would really appreciate it if you would hit the thumbs up down below and like this video. That helps it get out to more people, which helps me out and helps the channel out. And if you want to keep updated on what we're doing on Short Rest Studios, then hit the battle axe at the bottom of the screen here and subscribe to the channel so that you'll get updated every time we put out a new video. And if you have some comments on anything that I've said, if you have questions, if you have some ideas for future episodes, do me a favor and put it in the comments down below. I would really love to hear from you. Thanks again for joining me this week on Short Rest Studios. We'll see you next time. Hey, I'm Judd, and this is